Hello everyone. So another RC passage, and the word count here is 773 words. So let's read the passage. Before we go to the passage, let me give you an overview of what we are doing every day. So this is for people who are joining it for the first time or watching the video for the first time, or for anyone who hasn't yet analyzed or planned his day properly. So every day at 7 a.m. we publish an article and newspaper on our Facebook group. So this is needed for you to join our Facebook group because you get PDFs and everything on Facebook group. These articles are selected from websites, from places from where CAT usually picks RCs, and we try to find out RCs from different genres, articles from different genres, so that you get used to reading different articles. Then at 10 a.m. every day we post an RC set on YouTube. So the explanation video is posted on YouTube and PDF is posted on FB group. So the idea is that you go and download the PDF from FB group, solve that RC, then go and check the explanation on YouTube. Similarly, at 12 noon we post a DILR set, then at 2 p.m. we post another DILR set, and at 4 p.m. RC set. So these 4 videos are posted on YouTube and their PDFs are uploaded on Facebook group. So you have to go and download the PDF from Facebook group, solve that set, and then go and check the solution and methods on the YouTube video. At 6 p.m. every day we do vocabulary quiz. This quiz is done on our Telegram group and it's been a quite hit, and this is something which we believe that by giving these quizzes every day you can improve upon your vocabulary, which is usually asked in other management interest tests and other things. At 8:30 p.m. we do one FB or Insta quiz. This is not on a regular basis. This is done thrice or maybe 4 times a week. And the topics range from geography, from GK, from science and technology, from computers, and all other topics. So this is a fun quiz. We also had earlier a Bollywood quiz and all these things. So this is all which we are giving to you guys on a daily basis. Apart from that, we also have 2 hours of live classes. These classes are only for our enrolled students, and for people who want to join these live classes can get in touch with us by either calling or sending WhatsApp on this number, and you can discuss about the processes and you can join us for these live classes. So let's start with this passage. So it says, textbook definitions of dangling modifiers include statements such as, walking down the road, a brick fell on his head. However, we hear such statements being made in conversations on a regular basis by students and by educated people alike. So the textbook definition will mark this statement, walking down the road, a brick fell on his head, as a statement which has dangling modifier. Dangling modifier means a modifier which can be associated to different objects. So we do not know with which object this modifier is attached to. Those kind of modifiers are called dangling modifiers. But so it says that textbook definition may say that it is a case of dangling modifier, but however, so I have already told you a lot of usages of however. So as soon you see these kind of words, these are signal words. So they tell you that there is something which is going to negate what has been said already. So however, we hear such statements being made in conversations on a regular basis by students and by educated people alike. So not only by students but by educated people also. So what the author is trying to say that though textbook definition says that these kind of things are not correct, but we see these kind or hear these kind of things in our daily basis. If the notion of standard English has been debased in our day, what should we teach students in school? So he says that if standard debased means to bring it down, to reduce the value or importance of anything. So the author says if the standard English has been debased, then what should we teach students in school? Should they learn to read and write without rules? not if they hope to succeed in the American economy. So the author is trying to bring one point here again. This is the new point, that if they want to succeed into the American economy, then they need to understand these textbook definitions. The norms of correct usage may be false, pretentious, and outdated, but they are standards of literate behavior demanded in government, business, and the professions. So author is agreeing to the fact that these textbook definitions or the norms of correct usage of English are outdated, are trying, pretentious means trying to make their importance, like trying to highlight that they are more important than they are worth it. So they are pretentious, they are false, they are outdated, but still you need to learn these textbook definitions, you need to learn these norms if you want to survive in government, businesses, and professions, that is American economy. Students who want to get ahead in American civilization must continue to learn standard English for its social utility, that means to survive in government, business, and professions, and not as its champions would have them believe its moral necessity. So one thing which author is again trying to state here, that it is not moral necessity to learn textbook definition of English, it is social necessity. It is necessity to survive in American civilization, to perform in American economy, but it is not morally required to learn these textbook definitions. What the educational system needs is not a change of curriculum, but a change of attitude. So the question which the author has asked in the beginning, that if the standard English has been debased so much, so what should we teach? So he is giving the answer on his own, and he says that curriculum is not, change of curriculum is not needed, but a change of attitude is needed. So we need to change the attitude, not curriculum. Students who come to the classroom speaking and writing a variety of dialects, jargons, and grammars are understandably repelled when informed that their native habits of language are wrong and unbeautiful. So now he is bringing students' perspective into the picture. So author says that when a student enters into a classroom and he has learned a way of speaking English from his own native place and from the people whom he was interacting with, and when he speaks something and he is told that his variety of dialects, jargons, and grammars are wrong, then he is repelled by that class. So he doesn't want to attach himself to that class and he wants to move away from that class, and that is something which is happening. So this is the student's perspective that the author is trying to bring in here. Now he is quoting one student as well. One student writes about a movie called The Incredible Melting Man, that the hero of the movie is a doctor, if you can call him a hero. His actions are so foolish that he gets himself killed over a melting man who's dying anyway. Now here you can see that this whose is not correctly written. All in all, the movie and its special effects are quite bad. So unless you are, instead of that he has written your, unless you're in for a horror movie that makes you laugh, you're better off spending your money on a case of beer and watching the tube at home. So that person has written a review of this movie, The Incredible Melting Man, and it has lot of grammatical errors, it has lot of punctuation errors. Now in the normal course of events, this student can expect to watch his prose disintegrate into a red porridge of corrections about tone, diction, punctuation, and the distinction between who is and whose, you are and your. So these are the things which in normal course of events a student can expect, that this review of Incredible Melting Man that he has written will be changed into errors, and it will be marked with lot of errors and everything. From repeated doses of correction, he certainly will not learn to write. So the author is saying that if you continuously give him corrections, he will not learn to write. Instead, he will lose all confidence in himself as a user of English. So he will lose confidence. he will simply stop committing his best thought and vital interests to words framed that is in the approved fashion. So what he will do, he will stop committing his best thought. So that means he will stop writing what he has earlier written. So his views about Incredible Melting Man that he has written, he'll stop writing these kind of reviews and his views, because he is not able to frame words in an approved fashion. I avoid English class as though it were some contagious diseases. Contagious means which spread by being in close proximity and all. This is probably due in part to my fear of failure, writes a freshman. So again, this is something which is written by a freshman. Lack of agreement, comma splice, spelling error comes the professional reply to this intelligent self-diagnosis. So instead of understanding what this student is trying to say, what teacher will do, what the professional person will do, he'll come up with lot of errors in the statement. Lack of agreement, comma splice and spelling error. Yet none of the errors committed in this example or the earlier Melting Man critic is fatal to comprehension, and the level of intelligence in both quotations is respectable. So author is saying that though we are able to comprehend what the students were trying to say in these two quotations, still they had lot of grammatical errors, lot of standard textbook definition errors, but we were able to comprehend what they were trying to say, and the level of intelligence in both the quotations is respectable. But no one will respect that, no one will go and learn that. So in both the cases you can see that in normal course of events, errors will be identified here as well and here as well. Is the role of the English teacher to exact mechanical adherence to an established set of linguistic standards, or to develop the consciousness of language necessary for the student to comprehend his own linguistic conventions? So now the author is putting a question that what is the job of an English teacher? Is the job of English teacher is to exact mechanical adherence? That means whatever the textbook definitions are, you should exactly use them and you should exactly follow them, or to develop the consciousness of language. So these are the two different things. These are the two things which contrast each other. So what is the actual job of an English teacher? The answer, I think, is that the English teacher must in justice do both. So he has to set a balance between both the things. Standard English should be taught as a practical tool of social advantage. Why it is socially needed, we have discussed it here. Never as a moral or aesthetic form. This is also been discussed. So let me highlight this thing. So should be taught as social advantage, not as a moral or aesthetic form. Even the so-called illiterate students abused in the popular press are acute enough to understand the logic behind learning established forms for economic survival. So so-called illiterate students, that means students who didn't follow textbook definitions. Though these students are called illiterate students, so these are so-called illiterate students. They understand that the reason behind learning established form for economic survival. They understand that they need to learn these standard form to survive, not as a moral necessity. On the other hand, the logic that presents correct English as an ethical necessity is false, and students rightly reject it. With the false logic, they wrongly reject the language they need to learn. So when it is presented to them in a manner that it is necessarily it is morally or ethically necessary for them to learn correct way of English, then they reject that logic. They say that this is not a correct logic or a rational, and because they are trying to reject the logic, instead of rejecting just logic, they reject the language as well. They wrongly reject the language as well. We need an honest rationale for teaching standard English. So this is one thing which we need to know. Second, standard English should be treated as a second language, not as the correct form of the language the student already speaks and writes. So a student already speaks and writes a correct form of language, so don't try to portray standard English as a correct form of language. So whatever they have learned, in their native place from the people whom they were interacting since beginning. They know how to comprehend, how to present themselves, and that is the correct form of English. So don't try to impose this standard English as the correct form of English. Formal English should be taught from an early age, much the same way Latin used to be taught. Students should not be made to feel inadequate because the language of their daily lives and feelings does not correspond with the formal language of a society, but they should be required to learn the rules and uses of this formal language for their own economic good. So it should be made socially necessary, not morally and ethically necessary. The goal of teaching formal English as a second language should be to provide all citizens with the ability to read and write all those public documents by which society organizes itself, that is, social need. Thirdly, the teachers should permit the greatest possible freedom in students' personal writing with these understandings that society at large will not accept ideas written in this form, that the speech and writing must be clear and comprehensible, that the student should develop his awareness of the uses of language as a result of his own writing. So now there are 3 points which are discussed here. So thirdly, we have second, and the first one is we need to find out some rationale for teaching standard English. So thirdly, teacher should permit the greatest possible freedom in students' personal writing. So students should not be corrected when they are doing their personal writing, for example, writing a review of Incredible Man or doing some self-diagnosis or analysis, with these understandings that society at large will not accept ideas written in this form, that the speech and writing must be clear and comprehensible, that the student should develop his awareness of the uses of language as a result of his own writing. So they should be allowed to write, as well as they should be told that society at large will not accept because they have that standard form of writing, that the speech and writing must be clear and comprehensible, and students should try to learn language or uses of language from their own writing. So these are the 3 things thirdly that teachers should do. Students ought to be allowed to find their own voice without being buried underneath a melancholy heap of rhetorics, style sheets, and how to write manifestos. I feel that if all the information is there, why be concerned with general to specific and upside down triangles? Writes one freshman. Good question, even without a question mark. So a person has written this statement and it's a good question. So, but there is no question mark. Why be concerned with general to specific and upside down triangles? There is no question mark. So now the author says good question even without a question mark. We are able to understand that it is a question even without a question mark. In a nutshell, if I want to summarize this passage, the passage is all about importance of standard English as a social necessity, not as a moral and ethical necessity, and why students should be allowed to read, to write in their own way, and they should be allowed to learn correct usages of English by their own writings. They should be told that the correct and formal way of writing is needed for them to survive in society, to as demanded by government, business, and professions. So this is in a nutshell the whole passage. Let's read the questions. The bold-faced sentence in the passage implies that. So this statement, good question even without a question mark, what does it imply? So if we go through the passage and this statement, what the author is trying to say that even if you are not following standard or textbook definitions of English or standard ways of English, still you can write something which is comprehensible, and the meaning and the idea can be understood by people, even if there is some flaw as presented by textbook definitions. So this is something which we should look at in the option as well. Though it contains a good question, lack of punctuation renders it meaningless. So this is not correct, because author himself is saying that it is not meaningless. It is unquestionably a good question, but a question mark would have made it a perfect question. This is not why the author has written this statement. Rules of punctuation can be dispensed with and communication can still be effective. This is what the author is trying to bring across. Fourth point, lack of a question mark does not affect its merit as a question. This is correct, but it is between C and D. C is putting in front of us all the information, all what the author is trying to say. Option number D is just focusing on one part, that is communication can still be effective, or not even that. What this option is trying to say, that the merit as a question is not affected if there is no question mark, but the main idea is represented by option number C. So we'll go with the best possible option, that is C, not D. Question number 2 says the author has cited the example of the review of the Incredible Melting Man. So here Incredible Melting Man has been discussed, and what the author has tried to say here, you can see that this is the review by the student. Then the author has spoken about normal course of events where this will be turned into a red porridge, and then what will happen because of this normal course of event is emphasized. From repeated doses of correction, he certainly will not learn to write. Instead, he will lose all confidence in himself. He will stop committing his best thought. So these are the things which the author is trying to emphasize by quoting example of Incredible Melting Man. So let's read the option. To demonstrate that the errors are not of a serious nature. That is not what the author's only purpose is. To prove that students' English has degenerated. This is definitely not the correct answers. So A we can still think of if we do not have anything else, but B is definitely not. C, to show that though the errors do not cloud comprehension, too much emphasis on correcting those errors can dampen a student's interest in using the language. So this is something which is mentioned everywhere, that though it was comprehensible, but this will be changed into red porridge, and will not learn to write and will stop committing himself his best thought. So this seems like the best option. Let's read fourth one as well. To convey that standard English is not a prerequisite for conveying one's best thoughts. So this statement is right as compared to the whole passage, but this is not why the author has mentioned here. You can see that this thing, to convey that standard English is not prerequisite for conveying one's best thoughts, is discussed here. So standard English and why standard English is needed and all these things are discussed here, not in this paragraph. In this paragraph he is trying to focus that he will stop committing his best thought. So option C is the correct one, though option D is right as per the passage, but it is not right for this particular question. Next option, question 3, which of the following is not the author's suggestion on teaching English? Students should not be saddled. So not the author's suggestion. First, students should not be saddled with too many ready-made directions on using language. This is something which author has stated here. So this is stated by the author, so it can't be our answer. Second, to teach a student formal English, we must catch them young. So this is also mentioned here somewhere. From an early age, in much the same way Latin used to be taught. So this is also mentioned. Then the practical need for learning English should be emphasized. That is economic need to work in government, and for others to know your things. This is also mentioned. The students who speak vernacular English should be discouraged from doing so. This is something which author has never mentioned, and author has always mentioned that you should not discourage anyone in presenting themselves or in speaking their native language and all those things. So this is not correct, and this will be our option for this question. Fourth, where can the sentence given below be inserted in the passage? This process of alienation explains in part why the average age college freshman has so little to say on paper. So see, here you can see writes a freshman. So in third paragraph, a freshman has quoted something and self-diagnosed himself, and before that, in this melting man example, the author has said that he will stop committing his best thought, and he will lose interest in English. So between these two things, like after second paragraph and before third paragraph, this statement goes well. This process of alienation explains in part why the average age college freshman has so little to say on paper. And then freshman is quoted as he says that I don't want to attend these classes and I don't want to write and all these things. So in the second paragraph he says why he will stop writing, and in third paragraph starting he says that why he is trying to avoid English class. So I would say that it is best if it goes at the end of para 2. Now other options, you can find out that those are not actually relevant positions for this statement to insert. For example, in the first paragraph, there is no information about this process of alienation, that why they remove themselves from English language and all. So this at the end of para 1 is not good enough. Similarly, at the end of para 5, that is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, here the whole passage ends with a good ending. So now this process, so which process we are trying to refer to is not even correct here. So the process that we are trying to express here goes here, that when they are forced to correct their English rather than talking about their views. So this also is not good. And fourth paragraph, the whole paragraph gives reasons what we should do, that is how standard English should be taught, and the correct form of presenting English, formal English and standard English to students, what they should do, what they should not do. So again it is not valid in the fourth paragraph as well. So the correct answer is option number B. In fact, once you identify that it is at the end of para 2, you don't even have to go through other options. So if you read passage properly, then you can easily identify where this sentence fits into the passage. Last one, what is the author's view regarding the sentence, I avoid English classes as though it were some contagious disease. This is probably due in part to my fear of failure. So here it is said, and author says that none of the errors committed in this example or the earlier melting man critique is fatal to comprehension, and the level of intelligence in both quotations is respectable. Also he says to this intelligent self-diagnosis. So he says that instead of acknowledging this intelligent self-diagnosis, which is comprehensible and level of intelligence is also respectable, no professional will try to understand this self-diagnosis or review of melting man. Instead they will try to find out errors as per textbook definitions of English. So let's read the options and see if we can get something like that. It contains mistakes but presents good self-analysis. So goes well with the author's view. Let's read other options first. It contains the reasons for the student's aversion towards English classes. That is not author's view regarding the sentence. So that is the view of the student, but this is not what the author wants to emphasize from here, this statement. It shows the rigidity with which the professors view ungrammatical English. That is also one of the thing, but he also wants to emphasize that the analysis was good, it was comprehensible, and it was intelligent. So this option just talks about half of the reasons or views of author, not the full view of the author. Fourth one says it shows how lack of grammar can alter the meaning of sentences. This is factually incorrect because author has stated that it is comprehensible and intelligent. So we'll go with option number A for this question. So that's it for this particular passage, guys. I hope you have liked the explanation. Please like, share and subscribe to our channel. अगर अभी तक सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया है, please subscribe it now and share it with at least 20 friends of yours. So this should be the request from my end to all the students who are watching this video, that please share it with at least 20 friends of yours. Share it in your college groups, share it with your friends and in your groups where you are doing this preparation. So just spread the words. Thank you guys. Happy learning. Enjoy your day.